The courtroom was packed, cameras off, phones confiscated, yet the tension in the air hummed louder than any notification could. Robyn Brown sat still, her hands folded tightly on her lap, fingers trembling just enough to give away the calm face she tried to hold on to. To everyone outside this wooden box of judgment, the Browns were the perfect family, a modern success story of faith, unity, and resilience. Robyn was the doting mother, Kody, the steadfast patriarch, and little Ariela, the miracle child who had supposedly brought peace after years of chaos. But that illusion was about to crack. At precisely 10:42 a.m., the bailiff's voice broke through the quiet hum. "All rise." Judge Maloney entered, his robe brushing lightly against the oak bench. No one knew then that the next hour would change everything the Browns and their followers believed about family, loyalty, and truth. Robyn exhaled softly. Her lawyer, Christine Hale, whispered something inaudible, sliding a stack of documents across the table. On top, the envelope, the one that held the DNA results. Across the aisle, Kody shifted in his seat, expression unreadable. He'd seen that envelope before, in private. But today, it would be opened in front of witnesses, lawyers, and cameras waiting outside. It had started months earlier with whispers, a hospital billing error, a lab technician who refused to sign off on a DNA confirmation because something didn't match. Then came the anonymous email, the message that changed the course of everything. "You might want to check the records on Ariela Brown. The blood types don't add up." At first, Robyn dismissed it as gossip, another dig from those who never understood their unconventional life. But when the hospital's patient ID numbers didn't align with the mother's medical file, she couldn't ignore it anymore. And now, here they were. A custody hearing turned into a genetic investigation. Robyn swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor." Her tone was soft, rehearsed, almost fragile. But beneath it, fear. From the back row, Janelle and Mary exchanged a glance. The family's once solid foundation was cracking, and everyone in that courtroom knew it. As the clerk moved forward to unseal the envelope, Robyn's lawyer placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "stay composed." But Robyn couldn't, not when the truth she'd buried for years was about to surface. Because Robyn Brown knew what the DNA test would show, and it wasn't going to prove that Ariela was hers. For years, Robyn Hartley had lived by one rule: keep the story straight. The story of Ariela's birth was simple, or at least it used to be. She'd told it so many times that it became second nature. A home birth, complications, a last-minute hospital transfer. The papers got mixed up. That was the explanation she gave to anyone who ever asked about the mismatched medical forms. No one ever pressed further, not her husband, not her friends, not even the midwife who had started asking quiet questions before she suddenly left town. But lies have a half-life, and this one had finally run out of time. It started 6 months before the hearing, when Ariela had gotten sick. Nothing serious. A fever that wouldn't break. The pediatrician ordered standard labs. Blood type O negative. Robyn didn't think much of it until a nurse mentioned that both she and her husband were AB positive. That night, Robyn didn't sleep. She scrolled through old medical bills, birth records, insurance claims. Nothing matched the way it should have. She thought about calling the hospital but hesitated. She remembered the night Ariela was born, how chaotic it was, how a nurse took the newborn for testing and didn't return for nearly 2 hours. She'd chalked it up to normal postnatal chaos. But now, with the nurse long gone and the hospital restructured under a new name, there were no easy answers. Then came the email. "Check your daughter's patient ID from the hospital records. It doesn't belong to you." It came from an encrypted account, no name, no signature, just that one sentence. By the time Robyn followed the breadcrumb trail, she discovered that the file linked to Ariela's ID number corresponded to a baby born the same night, to another woman, a single mother who had died weeks later under unclear circumstances. And that's when she knew Ariela wasn't hers, at least not biologically. The realization wasn't just a shock. It was a fracture. A break between who she thought she was and who she had become. For years, she had built her identity around being the mother who saved her family from collapse. She'd carried that pride like armor. But now, standing in a courtroom facing DNA evidence that threatened to erase her entire role, Robyn wasn't sure what was left of her. As the test results sat unopened before the judge, her mind drifted back to the night of the birth. She could still hear the nurse's hurried footsteps, the crying from down the hall, the clipboard exchange, the way the baby in her arms, Ariela, had quieted instantly, as if she already knew this wasn't her mother's heartbeat. Robyn blinked away the memory, her throat tightening. Christine, her lawyer, whispered, "Stay calm, we'll contest the chain of custody." But Robyn couldn't hear her. All she could think about was the last word in that anonymous email. "You're not the only one who knows." 2 weeks before the hearing, a brown envelope appeared on Christine Hale's desk. No return address, no postage, just her name printed neatly across the front in black ink. Inside was a flash drive and a single note. "The truth is in the records. Check St. Mary's the 14th of June, 2015. Christine plugged it in, expecting junk. Instead, a folder popped open. Scanned birth logs, intake forms, even internal hospital memos. Every file was dated around Ariela's birth, but one detail made her freeze. 2 infants, born minutes apart, had been logged under the same wristband number for over an hour before being corrected. She called Robyn immediately. When Robyn answered, Christine's voice was measured but heavy. "Do you know anyone named Mara Winters?" Silence. That was the name of the other mother, the woman who died 6 weeks after giving birth alone in a clinic miles away, Robyn whispered. "No, I've never heard of her." But her voice trembled, and Christine caught it. Later that night, Christine reviewed the hospital's security logs again. She noticed something strange. A nurse named Elena Ruiz had accessed both infants' medical files, then resigned abruptly 2 days later. The official report said she'd moved out of state, except she hadn't. The investigator Christine hired found her living under a different name in a small Arizona town, working nights at an urgent care. When they reached her, Elena's first response wasn't denial. It was guilt. "I shouldn't have followed orders," she said quietly over the phone. "We were told to switch the records. The families weren't supposed to know." Christine's pen froze over her legal pad. "Who gave that order?" Elena hesitated. "It came from higher up. The hospital was covering a billing issue. One baby had government insurance. The other didn't. They thought they could adjust the paperwork." By the time Christine ended the call, she realized the scope of what they were facing. This wasn't just a maternity mix-up, it was a cover-up. She looked again at the name on the files. Ariela Hartley. A child born into someone else's paperwork, raised in someone else's story. The next morning, Christine called Robyn in. When Robyn arrived, Christine slid the documents across the table. "These are from an anonymous source," she said. "I can't verify everything yet, but if this is real, it explains the blood-type mismatch and why the hospital's been uncooperative." Robyn stared at the papers, her lips barely moving. "So someone just decided who my daughter would belong to." Christine didn't answer. There was no comfort to offer. Outside, the sky turned the color of steel. She pressed her hands against the folder, as if holding it shut could keep the truth from leaking out. She looked up finally, her voice shaking but clear. "If they switched her once," she said, "they'll do anything to hide it again." And that was the moment Christine knew. This case wasn't about proving biology. It was about exposing a system that thought it could rewrite people's lives. The interview room was small and plain. White walls, no windows, one table between Christine and the woman who'd helped start this whole mess. Elena Ruiz looked nothing like the ghost Robyn had imagined. She wasn't frail or scared, she was steady. A little tired around the eyes, but calm. Christine set a recorder on the table and said quietly, "I just need you to tell the truth." Elena nodded. "I've been waiting to, for the next 40 minutes, she explained everything. The night of the 14th of June had been chaos. 2 births back to back, one complicated, one routine. A billing clerk had panicked when she realized that one of the mothers, Mara Winters, didn't have active insurance. Someone from administration decided to bill the delivery under the other mother's name, temporarily linking the babies. The mix-up should have been corrected right away, but it wasn't. Elena swallowed hard. "We were told not to question it. Just make sure both babies were healthy, and that the records balanced. That was all that mattered." Christine leaned forward. "So the switch wasn't intentional at first?" Elena's eyes dropped to her hands. "Not at first, But when Mara died, there was an opportunity to make it permanent. No one wanted an investigation. They changed the digital logs, reassigned the patient ID, and told me to shred the paper files. I couldn't do it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a worn folder. Edges soft, paper yellowed. "These are copies," she said. "The originals are gone. But these prove what happened." Christine opened the folder. Inside were printed timestamps from the hospital database, showing both babies under the same wristband number for an entire hour. At the bottom of one sheet, a note in handwriting read, "Swap complete file under Hartley." Elena's voice wavered. "I told my supervisor this was wrong. He told me to remember who paid my salary." Christine exhaled slowly. "You understand what this means, right? Once this gets out, the hospital will deny everything. They'll come for you." "I know." Elena's face softened. "But I can't keep pretending. I don't see that little girl's picture online. She deserves to know who she is." That night, Christine called Robyn and met her in a quiet cafe on the edge of town. When she laid the folder on the table, Robyn didn't touch it. She just stared at it, eyes fixed, jaw clenched. "She has her father's eyes," Robyn said finally. "But not mine. I always told myself that didn't matter." Christine's voice was gentle. "It doesn't change that you've raised her, but if the court asks for proof, we'll have to use this." Robyn nodded once, slowly. "Then use it." When she left the cafe, the wind was cold and sharp. She tightened her coat and walked faster, every step heavier than the last. She'd spent years protecting the image of a perfect family. Now she had to protect the truth, even if it destroyed that image completely. When Christine sent the hospital's legal department a certified notice requesting confirmation of the birth records, she expected a polite but vague reply. Instead, she got silence. 3 days later, a letter arrived from a large downtown law firm representing St. Mary's Medical Center. It was short, defensive, and carefully worded. After a thorough internal review, St. Mary's has found no evidence of record tampering, data inconsistencies, or procedural violations related to the birth of Ariela Hartley. Any such allegations are categorically false. No mention of the timestamps. No mention of Elena Ruiz. Christine set the letter down on her desk, jaw tightening. "They're burying it," she said aloud to herself. When she called Robyn that evening, Robyn already knew. The hospital had contacted her directly, offering a clarification statement and a non-disclosure agreement. They were willing to settle quietly if she withdrew her request for further testing. "They want me to pretend none of this happened," Robyn said bitterly. "They think money will fix it," Christine sighed. "They're trying to protect their reputation. If the story gets out that they mixed up 2 babies, their liability skyrockets." Robyn's voice cracked. "This isn't about reputation, it's my child." The next morning, Christine met with the state's medical records board. She brought the copies Elena had given her and asked for an independent audit. The board agreed, reluctantly, to open an inquiry. But within a week, the hospital's attorneys filed an injunction, blocking the release of internal data to protect patient privacy. The case was now officially sealed. Christine stared at the court filing, frustration bubbling beneath her calm exterior. "They've locked every door," she muttered. "Every single one." Robyn sat across from her, pale but resolute. "Then we find another way in." That other way came unexpectedly. A former St. Mary's technician named Derek Hayes reached out through a private message saying he'd seen something strange years ago in the hospital's archives, duplicating infant records from the same night, both marked finalized. Christine met him in a coffee shop after hours. Derek slid a USB drive across the table. "These are screenshots," he said quietly. "If you trace the database edits, you'll see who logged them. It wasn't Elena, it was an administrator." Christine plugged it into her laptop and saw the username C. Warner, the hospital's director of records. That night, Christine called Robyn again. "They didn't just cover it up," she said. "They orchestrated it." For a long moment, Robyn said nothing. Then quietly, "Then we're taking this to court." She looked at a photo of Ariela on her phone. Bright eyes, wild curls, the smile that had carried her through so many hard days. Whatever the truth was, Robyn wasn't backing down now because the hospital had just made the worst mistake possible. They'd tried to silence a mother. The official case name read Hartley v. St. Mary's Medical Center, but everyone in town knew what it really was. a fight over the truth of one little girl's identity. Christine filed the complaint on a gray Tuesday morning. It was 47 pages long, packed with evidence, sworn statements, and a motion for immediate DNA verification. Within 24 hours, the filing hit the local news. By the next day, the story had gone national. Headlines flooded every feed. Hospital accused of baby mix-up. Family demands DNA. Test mother says daughter may have been switched at birth. Reporters camped outside Robyn's driveway. Neighbors whispered. People who'd once smiled at her in the grocery store now looked away. Through it all, Robyn stayed silent. Christine handled the media, her tone measured and calm, refusing to give details beyond what was in the filing. Behind the scenes, the hospital's legal team worked overtime. They filed motions to dismiss, claiming the statute of limitations had expired. They accused Christine of violating confidentiality. They even tried to discredit Elena Ruiz, calling her a disgruntled former employee with no verifiable proof. But they couldn't ignore one thing: the data Derek Hayes had given them. The audit logs showed that the director of records, Charles Warner, had accessed both babies' files the night of the births. Christine filed a subpoena for Warner's testimony. That is when everything started to shift. 2 nights before the preliminary hearing, Christine got a call at home. It was Warner. His voice was tense, low. "I can't talk for long," he said, "but I saw your filing. You are closer than you think." Christine leaned forward, gripping the phone. "Then help us. Tell the court what happened," he hesitated. "You don't understand. This goes higher than me. The hospital wasn't just fixing records. They were hiding billing fraud. If I talk, I lose everything." "Mr. Warner," Christine said, her voice even, "a child's entire identity is at stake. You have to decide what matters more." Silence, then a faint sigh. "Check the archived billing database, file path HN-2015. You'll find what you are looking for." The line went dead. At dawn, Christine drove to her office and called Derek. Together, they searched the path Warner had mentioned. Buried deep in old encrypted folders was a series of transactions, 2 billing IDs with identical timestamps, one deleted 3 days after the birth. And there it was, a billing form listing patient A under Mara Winter's name, replaced by patient B, Ariela Hartley. Christine stared at the screen. Her chest felt tight. This was it, the proof the court couldn't ignore. She'd already printed everything and had it filed under sealed motion for the judge's review by the time the sun rose. Later that morning, when Robyn came into the office, Christine handed her the folder. "This changes everything," she said simply. Robyn's eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just whispered, "Then let's end this." The courthouse was colder than Robyn expected. Marble floors, fluorescent lights, the faint echo of heels against tile. Everything felt sterile, detached, like it belonged to someone else's life. She clutched her daughter's small silver bracelet in her palm as she sat beside Christine at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, the hospital's attorneys looked calm, confident, rehearsed. Their lead counsel, a man named Peterson, wore the kind of quiet smirk that only comes from knowing you have a powerful institution behind you. Christine leaned close. "Don't let them rattle you," she whispered. "They'll try." Robyn nodded, jaw tight. The bailiff called the room to order, and the judge entered, the same Judge Maloney who'd presided over cases twice this size, but never one this personal. He looked over the docket and then directly at Christine. "Miss Hale, you are alleging a deliberate falsification of hospital records resulting in a child's misidentification. Do you have preliminary evidence?" Christine rose slowly, her tone calm but pointed. "Yes, Your Honor. We have internal logs, a signed statement from a former employee, and financial records indicating both infants were billed under a single insurance ID. We request that the court order DNA testing to confirm biological relation." Peterson stood immediately. "Your Honor, these claims are based on unverified documents from unreliable sources. There is no proof of tampering, and the hospital has already completed its internal review. This case should be dismissed before we drag innocent parties through needless spectacle." The judge adjusted his glasses. "You'll have your turn, Mr. Peterson, for now. I am allowing the motion for testing to proceed." That single sentence shifted the entire room. Christine allowed herself one small breath of relief, but Robyn, sitting perfectly still, felt no victory, only fear. Because for all her determination, there was still a part of her that dreaded what the results might say. During the lunch recess, reporters crowded the courthouse steps. Microphones flashed, voices shouted questions. "Robyn, how do you feel? Do you believe Ariela is really yours? Are you prepared for the results?" Robyn said nothing. Christine guided her through the chaos, shielding her from the noise. Inside the car, Robyn finally spoke. "If the test proves she's not mine, what happens then?" Christine looked out the window before answering. "We'll deal with that when we get there, but remember, biology doesn't erase love." Robyn nodded faintly, staring at her reflection in the window. She didn't look like the woman she used to be, the one who believed that love and truth always moved in the same direction. That night, back at home, she found Ariela asleep on the couch, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Robyn knelt beside her and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Whatever they say," she whispered, "you're mine." The results came on a Thursday morning. No warning, no phone call, just a plain envelope delivered by courier, sealed in tamper-proof plastic with the lab's insignia stamped in blue. Christine was the first to see it. It landed on her desk at 9:17 a.m. The weight of it somehow heavier than paper should feel. She stared at it for several seconds before picking up the phone. "Robyn," she said quietly. "They're here." There was a pause on the other end. "Then I'll be there in 15 minutes. When Robyn arrived, she looked calm, too calm. Her expression had that glassy stillness that comes from rehearsing every possible outcome until you feel nothing at all. Christine gestured to the envelope. "We can read it now or wait until court. It's your choice." Robyn didn't hesitate. "Now," Christine nodded and carefully slit the seal. The papers slid out with a faint whisper. The first page was a summary, dense with legal and scientific language. Christine's eyes scanned down to the bold section near the bottom. Probability of maternity. 0.00% for a moment. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, thick and unmoving. Robyn blinked once, then twice, as if her mind refused to translate the words into meaning. She whispered, "0." Christine set the papers down gently. "It means there's no biological match." Robyn's breath caught. "So it's true." She stood up abruptly and paced the office, hands in her hair, the shock rolling through her like a wave. "All this time?" Her voice cracked. "They let me believe." Christine spoke carefully. "You didn't do anything wrong. You loved your daughter. That's real. But now we have proof the hospital switched the babies." Robyn stopped pacing and looked at her. "And the other child? Mara's baby?" Christine hesitated. "The file was sealed. We don't have access yet. But now that we have DNA confirmation, the judge can order a full release." Robyn sank into a chair, staring at the floor. "She's not mine," she murmured, "and I'm not hers. But how do I tell her that?" Christine didn't answer. Some truths didn't have gentle versions. By the afternoon, the lab's report had been submitted to the court. The judge reviewed it privately and scheduled an emergency hearing for the following week. Outside the courthouse, the press swarmed again. Reporters shouted questions about the DNA bombshell. The story had turned from rumor to confirmation. Christine shielded Robyn as they left the building. "This isn't the end," she said quietly. "It's the beginning of the real fight." That night, Robyn sat alone in Ariela's room. The little girl slept soundly, surrounded by dolls and soft blankets. Robyn watched her for a long time, memorizing the small rise and fall of her chest. "In the stillness," she whispered, "I may not have given you life, but you gave mine meaning." And for the first time since the ordeal began, she cried. Not out of fear, but out of love that refused to be defined by blood. The morning after the DNA results became public, the world seemed to shift on its axis. By sunrise, news vans lined the street outside Robyn's house. Neighbors stood on porches, pretending not to stare. Headlines filled every screen. DNA test confirms hospital error. Mother's lawsuit exposes decade-old switch at birth scandal. Inside the house, it was eerily quiet. Robyn sat at the kitchen table, staring into her untouched cup of coffee while Christine's voice came through the speakerphone. "They'll spin this however they can," Christine warned. "The hospital's already denying responsibility. They're calling it a laboratory discrepancy. They'll probably claim contamination." Robyn barely responded. The words washed over her like background noise. What mattered wasn't the hospital's statement. It was Ariela. The little girl had started asking questions. Why are there cameras outside? Why are people saying my name on television? Robyn didn't know how to answer. Not yet. That afternoon, she met with Christine at the firm's downtown office. The mood was tense. Christine had spent the morning fielding calls from reporters, lawyers, and even child welfare officials. The state wants to confirm Ariela's guardianship status, Christine said. It's routine, but they'll want to verify everything now that the DNA results are official. Robyn froze. Are they saying I could lose her? Christine shook her head. No one's saying that. But once the records are corrected, technically, her biological relatives could have standing to request information. Robyn's stomach turned. You mean, her real family? Christine's expression softened. Her other family? We don't even know if they're alive. Robyn will take this one step at a time. Robyn pressed her hands against her temples. I just want her safe. That's all. Meanwhile, the hospital's PR machine went into overdrive. They released a polished statement calling the DNA results deeply concerning, while promising a transparent investigation. But behind closed doors, their lawyers filed countersuits, defamation, emotional distress, even breach of confidentiality. It was a move designed to intimidate, and Christine knew it. We expected this, she told Robyn. They're trying to make it too expensive for you to keep fighting. Robyn's eyes hardened. Then they don't know me very well. By the end of the week, the judge ordered a full evidentiary hearing. All parties were required to submit complete hospital logs, employee statements, and DNA comparisons for the second child born that night. The one listed under Mara Winters. For the first time since this began, there was a chance the truth about that other baby might finally come to light. That night, Robyn stood in Ariela's doorway, watching her draw pictures on the floor. Crayon in hand, the little girl looked up and said softly, "Mom, are you sad?" Robyn knelt beside her. "No, baby, I'm just thinking." Ariela smiled. "Can I draw you happy again?" And with that, she sketched a stick, figure family, two people holding hands, a sun above them. In that simple drawing, Robyn saw everything that mattered. She didn't need a test to tell her who she was. The court's order arrived 3 days later. In clean, formal language, it required St. Mary's Medical Center to release all records connected to the second infant, born on the 14th of June 2015. The one originally logged under Mara Winters for years. That file had been sealed, locked behind privacy laws and bureaucratic red tape. Now it was finally open. Christine spent the entire night reviewing the documents. What she found was both heartbreaking and undeniable. The second baby, listed only as Baby Winters, had been discharged into state care 6 weeks after birth. Mara had died from complications following surgery, with no listed relatives. The infant had been placed in foster care, later adopted by a couple in another state. Her name now was Grace Ellison. When Christine told Robyn the next morning, the room fell completely silent. "She's alive," Christine said softly. "She's 10 now, and she's healthy." Robyn stared at her, unable to process the words. "So Ariela, she is theirs. And Grace is," Christine nodded. "Yours." The realization hit like a physical blow. 2 little girls, 2 families living separate lives because of one night, one mistake. Robyn gripped the edge of the table, her voice trembling. "Does Grace's family know? Not yet. The court will have to notify them officially, but they'll find out soon." 2 days later, a letter arrived from the Ellisons' attorney. It was short and formal, but the tone was unmistakable: shock, confusion, and a cautious request for communication. They wanted to speak. Christine arranged the call in her office. When the screen lit up, Robyn saw a couple in their late 30s, kind eyes, tense smiles, both visibly shaken. The woman spoke first. "We had no idea. We thought Grace was ours. We still do," Robyn nodded, tears threatening to fall. "I understand. I feel the same way about Ariela." For a moment, no one spoke. Just 3 parents connected by the kind of truth no one ever wants to face. The man, David, leaned forward. "Whatever happens, we don't want to take anything away from you, But Grace deserves to know where she came from. Robyn swallowed hard. So does Ariela. It wasn't anger that filled the silence. It was grief, shared, heavy, and real. After the call ended, Robyn sat quietly for a long time. Christine watched her, waiting. Finally, Robyn said, "There are 2 children out there who were robbed of their stories. We can't undo what happened, but we can give them the truth." Christine nodded, and we will. The next court date was set for the following week. This time, it wouldn't just be about proof. It would be about resolution. And as Robyn looked out the window that evening, the last light of sunset painting the sky gold, she felt something she hadn't felt in months, a fragile kind of hope. Because the truth, as painful as it was, had finally found its way to the surface. The day of the hearing felt different. There was still tension, but beneath it, something else: anticipation. The courtroom wasn't just filled with lawyers and reporters anymore. This time, both families were there. Robyn sat at one table with Christine beside her. Across the aisle sat David and Emily Ellison, Grace's adoptive parents, holding hands. Between them lay a single photograph, a picture of Grace, smiling, missing a front tooth. The judge entered quietly. "We're here today to review the results of the DNA confirmation and determine next steps for the minors involved," he began. "Let's proceed." Christine rose. "Your Honor, both families now acknowledge the confirmed identity swap and have agreed to share all relevant information regarding the children's welfare. Our request today is not about custody, but about contact, carefully introduced, guided by professionals, in the best interest of both children." Peterson, representing the hospital, barely spoke. Their position had weakened. The evidence was irrefutable, and public opinion had already turned against them. When the judge turned to Robyn, his tone softened. "Mrs. Hartley, do you wish to address the court?" Robyn stood slowly, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Your Honor, I raised Ariela from the moment she was placed in my arms. She's my daughter in every way that matters, but I know now that another little girl, Grace, should have been mine by birth. I don't want to take anything from anyone. I only want the truth to be known and for both girls to feel loved, no matter what a test says." The courtroom was silent except for the quiet hum of the air vents. Then Emily Ellison stood. "We agree, Your Honor. Grace is our daughter, but she also has another mother, another history. We don't want to erase that, we just want to do what's right." For a moment, it felt as though the air itself had softened. The judge nodded. "This is a rare case. There's no precedent that can fully guide it. What I can do is order a structured reunification plan. The girls will be introduced gradually, with counseling and oversight. Both families will remain their legal guardians until further evaluation." He paused, his expression reflective. "What happened here was tragic, but what you are choosing to do, that is extraordinary." He tapped the gavel lightly. "Court is adjourned." Later, Robyn and the Ellisons meet outside the courthouse. No cameras this time, just quiet conversation beneath the overcast sky. Emily pulled out her phone to show Robyn a short video of Grace laughing as she played with their dog. Robyn smiled through tears. "She is beautiful," she said. Emily nodded. "So is Ariela." They both laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes from exhaustion and understanding. Christine stood nearby, watching, knowing this was one of those rare moments when the law couldn't fix everything, but it could clear the way for healing. As Robyn walked away later, she realized something important. For the first time in months, she didn't feel lost. She felt found. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning 3 weeks after the hearing. No reporters, no cameras, no noise, just 2 families meeting at a neutral child center tucked away on the edge of town. Robyn arrived first, holding Ariela's hand. The little girl clutched her stuffed rabbit, the same one she'd carried since she was a baby. Her curls bounced as she walked, her eyes curious but calm. Inside the playroom, a counselor greeted them warmly. "Take your time," she said. "The Ellisons are on their way." Robyn nodded, her heart pounding. She'd spent sleepless nights imagining this moment. What Grace might look like, what she might say, whether she'd feel anything at all when she saw her. When the door opened, everything went still. Emily and David stepped in first, and behind them was Grace, a small, thoughtful girl with auburn hair and a quiet smile. For a long second, the 2 girls just stared at each other, mirror images of the same history rewritten. Then Grace spoke softly. "Hi," Ariela grinned. "Hi." They stood a few feet apart, shy but fascinated, before Ariela held out her stuffed rabbit. "This is Bunny." Grace's smile widened. "I have one just like that," she said, pulling a worn teddy bear from her backpack. The adults watched in silence as the two girls sat on the rug, comparing their toys, giggling like they'd known each other forever. It was the kind of innocence that didn't care about DNA reports or court orders, just connection. Robyn felt her throat tighten. Emily reached over gently, touching her arm. "They're okay," she whispered. Robyn nodded, eyes brimming. "Yeah, they are." Over the next hour, the girls played, drew pictures, and shared snacks while the parents talked quietly at a nearby table. There were awkward pauses, moments of emotion too heavy for words, but also unexpected laughter. David said, "It's strange, isn't it? Knowing we've been living pieces of each other's lives without even realizing it." Robyn nodded. "It's strange, but it's also kind of healing." Emily smiled softly. "Grace's favorite story is about how we adopted her. We told her she was chosen. I guess that's true in more ways than we knew. When the counselor signaled that time was up, neither child wanted to leave. They hugged quickly, spontaneous, genuine, before the families parted ways." Robyn looked back one last time as Grace waved from the doorway. She waved back, her heart full and breaking at once. Outside, Ariela squeezed her hand. "Mom, can we see them again?" Robyn smiled through tears. "Yes, sweetheart, we will." And in that moment, she knew something deep and certain. Family wasn't written in blood or on birth certificates. It was chosen, protected, and lived. One small act of love at a time. By the time the public found out about the reunion, weeks had passed. The court had released an official statement confirming the DNA results, the hospital's role, and the ongoing investigation. But it wasn't a scandal anymore. It had become a story about resilience, forgiveness, and what family really means. At first, Robyn dreaded the renewed attention. Cameras returned, reporters called, and headlines popped up everywhere, switched at birth. Both families choose love over litigation, but something had changed. This time, the story wasn't told about her, it was told to her. Christine arranged a single televised interview, one that both families agreed to do together. No sensationalism, no tears on cue, just the truth. When the cameras started rolling, Robyn sat beside Emily and David, with Ariela and Grace playing quietly in the background. The interviewer asked, "After everything that has happened, how do you move forward?" Robyn smiled faintly. "One day at a time. I used to think love came from biology. Now I know it comes from showing up every single day, even when it hurts." Emily added, "We didn't lose daughters, we gained a family. We're connected now, whether we expected it or not." The interviewer paused. "Do you forgive the hospital?" Christine glanced at Robyn. But Robyn didn't hesitate. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive the mistake," she said. "But I can forgive the people who've owned up to it. What matters is what happens next. That no other family goes through what we did." The clip aired that night and spread across social media within hours. Instead of outrage, people responded with empathy. Thousands of messages poured in, from parents, adoptees, and even former hospital staff. The tone had shifted completely. The world wasn't pointing fingers anymore. It was learning something. Weeks later, as the legal dust began to settle, the hospital quietly reached out to both families. They offered a formal apology, signed by the board, read aloud in court. It didn't erase what had happened, but when Robyn heard the words, she realized she no longer felt anger, just peace. After the hearing, Christine turned to her. "You did it," she said. "You got the truth, and you turned it into something better." Robyn smiled. "We all did." That evening, the families gathered at a park. No lawyers, no press, just laughter and sunlight. Ariela and Grace ran barefoot across the grass, chasing bubbles while their parents sat on a picnic blanket nearby. David handed Robyn a photo. It was the one the girls had drawn together. 2 houses, a rainbow between them, and in big block letters, "Family Forever." Robyn smiled and tucked it into her bag. "I think we'll frame that," she said softly. And as the sun dipped behind the trees, she finally felt it, the sense of closure that had once felt impossible. The truth was out. The story was theirs now. A year had passed since the DNA tests changed everything. Seasons had turned, lawsuits had faded into memory, and the story that once filled every headline had quietly become a part of local history. Robyn's life looked different now. She had moved to a smaller town nearby, where Ariela attended a new school and had already made a dozen friends. The chaos was gone. In its place was something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. On a bright Saturday morning, the two families met again at the same park where they'd first decided to start fresh. No cameras, no scripts, just life moving forward. Grace and Ariela were nearly inseparable now. They called each other sisters, not because anyone told them to, but because it felt true. Christine was there too, sitting under a tree with coffee in hand, watching the scene with quiet pride. "You know," she said, smiling, "when we first opened that envelope, I never imagined it would lead to this." Robyn laughed softly. "Neither did I, back then. I thought my life was falling apart. Turns out it was just rearranging." Emily joined them, holding a picnic basket. Grace asked if Ariela could come to her birthday next weekend. 10 girls, 1 chocolate fountain. Consider yourself warned, they all laughed. The kind of laughter that comes easy when the hard part is finally over. Later that day, as the kids ran off to chase butterflies, Robyn found a quiet moment to sit by the lake. The water shimmered, reflecting the sky. She pulled out a small photo, the one of Ariela and Grace from their first meeting. The girls were hugging, wide smiles, eyes bright with trust. She thought about everything that had happened, the pain, the fear, the endless questions, and how it had all led here. The truth hadn't destroyed them, it had rebuilt them. As the wind rippled the surface of the lake, Robyn whispered, "We're okay now." Behind her, Ariela's voice called out, "Mom, come play." Robyn smiled, tucking the photo away. "Coming, sweetheart." She stood, brushed the grass from her jeans, and walked back toward the laughter, toward the life she'd fought so hard to protect. The court officially closed the case that spring. The hospital issued new safety protocols and a public education fund in the family's names. Christine went on to advocate for patient rights full-time. And Robyn, she wrote a book. Not about scandal or blame, but about love. The kind that survives even when everything you believed about family is rewritten. In the final chapter, she wrote, "DNA can explain where we come from, but love is what tells us where we belong." And that was the real ending. Not in court, not on television, but in the quiet strength of 2 mothers, 2 daughters, and the truth that finally set them free.